Hi guys, so in this tutorial we are quickly going to talk about the database because it's one of the units in your IGCSE, and from my previous experience I can tell you that around 6 to 8 marks of questions actually come from this topic. So here we don't really need to go into too many details of database and programming languages. I mean database query languages and stuff, but I will try and teach you a very simple tool for kind of organizing a database. And most of the questions that you would see in your IGCSE past papers are also based on the pattern that we will study here. So I'm sure you all know what is a database. If I ask you, you would say it's a collection of information, but it does not end here. There is another important aspect that we need to talk about, is that this information which is collected in a database should be organized in a way that we should be able to easily access it or manage it, update it, edit it, delete it, and do all sorts of operations on it in an easier way and a faster way. So for example, if you have a database having 5,000 different records and you want to extract only 5 particular records based on some criterion, you should be able to do that in as fast and efficient manner as possible. So that's the database, and that's why we use different tools and technologies to work around the database. Now, when the database concept was originally created and started getting popular, there were different models which were used to see the efficiency of data and other things. So there was this networked database model, which was saying like you maintain the data in different files. It could be Excel files, it could be other flat files, and then you create some kind of linkages between these data. So it had its own advantages and disadvantages, but then we normally when it progressed further, we started using hierarchical database model, which was take the highest or the vast entity on top and then start dividing them into smaller entities like these. As you can see, these are just examples, okay? But the model which is the most popular and which is being used these days is called the relational database model, where we normally do what? We maintain the data in the form of tables of information, and there are ways in which the information in these tables are linked to each other. Okay, so I will talk about the relationship also, but before that I want to tell you about 3 technical terms that you need to know which are related to a database. Okay, first thing, if you see in the first table, there are some column headings which are given. So I'm talking about this publisher ID, the name of the publisher address. So these column headings which actually define what data will be a part of these columns, these are called fields. Okay, so if I ask you a question that how many fields are there in the first table, you are going to say 3 fields are there: publisher ID, publisher, and publisher address. And if I ask you the same question about the last table, you are going to tell me the field's name as ISBN, author ID, publisher ID, date, and title, which are the fields. Okay, now this is about the columns, so you can just remember it like this. So fields is like columns. If I talk about the rows in each table, you will see that all these rows have data which is pointing to one single piece of information, such as if I want to talk about the Willie and Sons publisher, so the name is mentioned here, the ID is mentioned here, and the address is mentioned here. So the entire row is actually dedicated to one single publisher, right? So these rows of information which contain data about a single entity, that is something that we call it as record. Okay, so you would say that the second row is a record of Willie and Sons publisher, and so on for each of these tables. Okay, third important thing that I want you to notice out here, in each of these tables you would notice that there is the field which has unique values. Okay, by unique values means that that there are values which are absolutely different from each other, and they are not same, and they cannot be same, right? For example, if I look at publisher column or the field publisher, there is a possibility that the names of 2 publishers could be same. Okay, even if you look at the publisher address, there could be a possibility that 2 or more publishers have the same address, same street, same city and stuff like that, same building. Okay, but what makes them distinct is the field called publisher ID. Even if they have the same name or the same address, their IDs are what are going to make them distinct or differentiated. Okay, so publisher ID here is the unique field, and any unique field in a database, we call it as the primary key. Okay, every single table in our database needs to have one primary key. There could be even more than one primary key, but what you need to know is that primary key is a unique field. Okay, for the author table, this is the primary key, which is author ID, because the name of the author or author birthday could be similar, could be same for 2 or more people. Okay, so 3 technical terms: fields is column, record is a row, and that is a primary key. Okay, so that is how relational database model actually functions. I mean, the way it functions is in this way. I'll give you one example. For example, like if you see the last table, if I want to find out the name of the publisher for this book called Cold Fusion for Dummies, right? So I will look at this entire record, but I will not be able to find the publisher name. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick this publisher ID, and then using this field I will actually look into the first field, first table. I'll match the publisher ID and I'll find the corresponding publisher name, and I'll say that Cold Fusion for Dummies was published by Random House. Okay, so each of these tables have these common fields which connects them. Okay, so if you see in the third table, you have publisher ID, which is a common field between first table and the third table. Okay, author ID is a field which connects this table that we are talking about and this second table. Author ID is here also. Okay, and then ISBN is the primary key for this particular table. Right, so you can see and establish relationships between them, and you can create queries, and you can query the database in a way to find out information which is relevant to you. Okay, for demonstrating you how a relational data, not relational, but how a database and a query actually works, I am going to use this app software called Access, which is a part of your Microsoft Office applications. You can even go further and look for database languages such as SQL and PLSQL, but to be very honest, for the IGCSE, you don't really need to go beyond this. Okay, so we are going to create a blank database in Microsoft Access, and it looks very similar to the similar tabs like you see normally in PowerPoint and Excel. It's a very similar Microsoft Office format. So here what I want to do basically is that I want to create a table of information. Okay, for this purpose, I'm going to take an example of a student database or a student table which has information about some students. Okay, so if I go back to my PowerPoint, first of all, I want you to notice that if I want to create a table, I also have to first define what kind of data will be a part of that column. Okay, so if you see publisher ID, it only consists of numbers. Publisher only consists of text, right? Publisher address is kind of a mixed this thing where it could contain numbers and text. Okay, and so on and so forth. So like author birthday is date of birth, it will accept the data in this format. Okay, so in Access, when we work and try and create a table of information, we actually first have to go into the design view so that we can design the table. Okay, so here what I'm doing is I'm naming the table as the student table. Okay, and here I will start writing the name of the fields. Okay, fields are the column headings, right? Because I have to first kind of design the table and then add data into it. So my first field, I would call it as student ID. Do not keep any spaces between the names. Use an underscore or don't put any space. Okay, so student ID, the type of the data that I want to put in this field would be a number. I don't want it to be an automatically generated number, so I'm going to change it from auto number to a number. Okay, then I would take student full name or just name, right, which I'm sure it can fit into short text, which is like a few characters. But if you want longer descriptions and stuff, then you use long text. But short text is normally used for addresses, for names and stuff. I don't exactly remember what is the character limit. You can check online. But I think it's written over here if you see. It's 255 characters, field properties. Okay? Yeah. So this much you can understand, I'm sure. Age of the student would be a number. Okay, and gender is going to be male or female, so just short text would do. Okay, yeah, this one, short text, right? Now I would also maybe use a field like fee paid or not paid. Okay, so a question mark that this particular student has paid the fee or not paid the fee. Okay, so the answer to this question will either be yes or a no, right? So for this, I'm going to use this type of a field, which is yes, no. Okay, so this is only going to accept any one of these entries, like you have these 0 and 1s or Boolean in a programming language. It's a Boolean field basically. Okay, then I would say maybe amount which has been paid as fee, so it could be different for different year levels and stuff like that. So for amount of fee, I would choose the type as currency. Okay, and lastly, I may just want to have the date of joining of this student in school or date of birth, anything. Okay, this is just for demonstration purposes, so may not seem very logical, but I'm just showing you what are the different kinds of fields that are possible and the data types. Okay, there are many that you can actually explore, but really we don't need more than that, but it's up to you if you want to explore more of these data types and see how they work. Okay, so I have in the design view, I have designed a table. Okay, only the outline of it, but now I want to go to the data sheet view and I want to start filling the table with some entries. Okay, so student ID, let me take, let's say 1 is the student ID. I'm taking random names. I'll only try and fill up some entries basically. Okay, so something like this, let me something like that. Currency and all could be changed, guys. I mean, you need to explore that. I'll also tell you how to change the currency signs here, but it's by default a dollar, but we have the option to change anyway. You really don't need to go into those many details. So let me say that I've paid $500 as a fee. There's another student. I'll add 3 or 4 entries with random names. She's 16. Let's say she's also a female. Okay, not paid the fee, so it's 0. 1 3 could be some person called Max. Age is 15, male. Okay, and fee paid. Let me say that he paid like $400 or something. Just randomly, I'm taking. This person has the ID 16. The name is David. Okay. And let's say he's 17, male, not paid the fee, so like that. So I have added some random data. You can see just 4 records of students. Okay, and this is how I just, okay, date of joining I've totally missed for each of them, and so I should fill them. So date of joining, anything, just whatever comes to my mind right now, I'll enter that. So for her it could be 2018. Okay. So let's just, I mean, year groups and all also you can add, but as I said, this is just very very random data, so I really don't know what I'm typing. 2012. Okay, so that's my random data which is ready, but want you to visualize, let's say a university or a school which has thousands of students. Let's say this student table has like 2000 records, and I want to extract only a few records based on some criteria. Okay, what you see on my screen is just a very small database, but imagine a very vast one. Then how would you query that database and find out things? Okay, let's write a query where I only want to see the names of the people who have not paid the fee. Okay, assuming that this database is very vast and has thousands of records. Okay, so for that I am going to select the table from the left hand side, and I'm going to go to create on top, and you will see something called query wizard, which is like a place or a kind of an interface which allows you to create queries. Okay, so just simple, you don't need to change anything out here. On this screen it is going to ask you which fields do you want in the query. Okay, now if it's a query only about the fee paid and you don't want the other fields like age, gender, and you don't want to see that, you don't add them. Okay, so one by one you can decide which fields do you want to add in the query. Okay, but if you want all the fields to be added, you just use this double equivalency sign and add all the fields. Go to next, no need to change anything out here, and just finish it. Okay, so here is my student query, right? But this student query shows me all the fields right now. Okay, it's exactly similar to my table student. Okay, so what's the use of it anyway, right? Because I wanted to see only those students who have not paid the fee. So what I'm going to do to make this work, I will right click on this query and I will go to design view. Okay, and now I want to design this query in the way I want. Okay, if you see here, this is how the query appears, and these are the fields: ID, gender, name, age, fee paid, amount, all of that, and the sorting and all of that, and which fields do you want. It is a tick mark right now because all the fields are in the query right now. And then there is something called a criteria here. Okay, so for me, the criteria for the query is that this field called fee paid, I want to set the criteria as equal to no. Okay, so basically I want this query to show me only those records where the fee paid is equal to no. That's the criteria which I'm setting. Okay, once I've done that, I'll click on run, and it shows me only 2 records where the fee was not paid. Okay, there are many other ways you can make queries work. Like if I just go back to design view, and I also want, let's say, those people who have not paid the fee but who are, let's say, greater than 16 in their age. Okay, so I can even add another criteria like this. So people who are greater than 16 in age and who have not paid the fee, these 2 are in the criteria. And when I run, so I'll see only one person, David, who is 17 years in age but has not paid the fee. Okay, I'm sure you are able to get this concept. You can use this query in any way, like even this way. So here the criteria is that age is greater than 16 and fee paid is no. So both these conditions need to be true, then I need to see the results. Okay, otherwise you can also have this kind of a condition that I want to see those people who are greater than 16 in age or whose fee paid is no. Okay, so if you see, I have placed this equal to no in front of or. Okay, earlier it was on the same line, which was a way of telling the query that it's an AND operator, but here I'm just saying that the age is greater than 16 or the fee paid is no. So when you run the query, it will be a different kind of this thing. Okay, so even this field is coming into picture because at least the age criteria is being satisfied. So Shelly, although she's paid the fee, but at least she's greater than 16. So this is coming up in the record because the criteria is or. So any one of the condition is true, and then it shows you the records. Okay, last thing before I close this video is that these tick marks over here, these are for showing the field. So if, let's say, in this query I do not want to see the student ID, gender, amount, date of joining in the query, and I'm only concerned about the name, age, and fee paid for the student, I can remove all those tick marks and I can run the query. So when you see the results, you will only see the 3 fields which you actually instructed the query to work the way you wanted it. Okay, so I think that's about it for the video, and I hope you've got the basic concept of it. After this, I will give you some worksheet and you can try your hands on it, and we will discuss more ways of actually writing the queries, because in your IGCSE there are different sort of questions that you might come across, and you need to know exactly how to attempt them. Thank you so much for listening to me.